Hey, you guys, how's everyone doing? What's good?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you guys joined us today. So happy Tuesday. We're really excited for this conversation because we get to talk less and you guys get to talk more, hopefully. Today we're going to be connecting the dots between the elements of holistic fitness that we've touched on so far and discuss how we can implement them into our lives. So I want to preface by saying that holistic fitness is not a one-size-fits-all. It's really impossible to try to do all of these things that we talked about all of the time at 100%, right? Like we're only human. And besides, that would be counterintuitive. It would cause stress and create more discomfort in a way in our lives if we try to fit it all in, because we would have to be chasing some version of perfection that we think that it might be, and it really doesn't have to be that way, right? So it's about using the tools and the resources that we've learned about and what we've talked about through this entire series and implementing maybe one, maybe two into your life in a way that fits into your puzzle, right? Everybody's puzzle looks a little different. And the idea here is that it fits in with ease and with joy. So it really just becomes about doing things that bring you the most joy, things that give you more energy, more confidence, something that challenges you in a positive way, maybe fills a hole, something that's been missing, something that elevates you, right? And ultimately provides balance in our lives. That's the goal, right? Work-life balance, we can't always expect to be constantly happy. We can't expect to constantly have 100% energy to do like 100 hit classes in a day, right? There's a balance to everything. There's a work to rest ratio in everything that we do, and that it's just about kind of learning yourself, learning your body, learning how to navigate through this. And that's the fun part about it, is that it's all a journey. So yeah, take it away, Louise.
Yeah, that's so basically, as we've discussed throughout this series, there are a lot of different elements when it comes to holistic fitness, just kind of like Daniela was saying. But whether or not, you tuned into that specific conversation, we do just want to hear from you in terms of what your experience has been with these different elements, right? We know that we're all familiar with the workout portion. But as we've discussed, there's breathwork, psychology, nutrition, recovery, like all that good stuff. So we kind of just want to break it down, talk to you guys, see again what your experience has been, or maybe any specific like challenges you've encountered with certain ones, or any successes. If you're like, this one is supernatural to me and I had no idea, like whatever it is, we kind of want to break it down and we want you guys to discuss. So please, 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 don't be afraid to raise your hand and chime in. This is a discussion. This is a whole roundtable, and this one is we're doing this for you guys. It's all about you guys. Less, like Danielle said, less of us talking, and we just kind of want to get your guys' perspective. So we're going to start off with breath work. So that was one of the first ones that we kind of went over. And again, whether or not you were in that conversation, we want to know from you, what has your experience been with breath work? Or what has been your perspective, whether or not you've really dove into it yet, So anybody that wants to take the floor and kind of talk about their experience or maybe something they've learned when it comes to breath work, please feel free, take the floor, and let's start the combo.
I'll break the ice. I'll break the ice. How about that? While you guys come up with something that you want to share. Breathwork has been a thing that I've been I think I would say is one of like the biggest things that I've really wanted to implement into my life. I tend to be anxious. I've never been like actually diagnosed with anxiety, but I do tend to stress out a lot. And I really do believe that breath work would help me a lot in navigating stressful situations. implement it more often in my life. And especially through this transition from moving from LA to New York and like the stresses that come along with it naturally, as much as like I've been doing a pretty good job mentally, telling myself like to not feel the quote unquote overwhelm that comes with a transition that large. I have still inevitably felt that overwhelm in some ways, whether it's, you know, not knowing, just, it really is about like the unknown, right? And that's just natural. We're all human, and not knowing and not having control over a certain situation is going to cause that stress. And I really do believe, like, especially when we had that conversation with Carmela on breath work, you know, she really talked about how it helps you revitalize, it helps you release tension, it helps you clear that stagnant energy that comes with going through the motions of something that really is man-made stress at the end of the day, right? But, and then also, you know, through that transition, and this is obviously my experience specifically, but you really are in this like fight or flight mode. You've got to do this, you've got to do that, you have no time for this, you have no time for that, it's got to be a certain way, it's got to be in this amount of time. It's like the list goes on and on, right? And it's just like, whoa. But breath work, and the beautiful thing about it that is so powerful is that it can truly shift you from a fight or flight into a rest and digest just by breathing, just by implementing box breathing, 4 seconds in, 4-second holds, 4-second out, 4-second holds. It's like, it's such a beautiful, easy tool that costs $0, mind you, that really only could take anywhere between 2 minutes, even 1 minute. My watch tells me to breathe all the time. You know, it's like these days, like, the tools are literally in your face. I get emails from my Calm app all the time saying, like, here's your weekly breath work, or, you know, stuff like that. And some way, somehow, I've still managed to avoid it. And I don't know if it's more avoidance or if it's one of those things where, call it procrastination or call it just a habit that I haven't been able to break yet. But it's definitely on the top of my list. And you know what? And I'm actually very curious to hear what you guys think about all this. But the like, when this happens, then I'll do it. When I get settled, then I'll, you know, the when this, then that. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that happens in our daily lives, and ironically enough, breathwork would help kind of combat that mentality. So for me, it's something I want to really, really implement, and something that is on the top of my list. But Charlie, please join us in the conversation.
Oh, hi guys. I was trying to figure out this app, and then I pressed the hand, and now I'm a speaker.
Yeah, you are. Go for it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess breath work is something that I haven't really done consistently, that I guess when we've done in class, it's always felt really good and something I've wanted to do. I think from my perspective and for me, it's about balancing and finding everything I should be doing for my body and with my fitness. You know, I tend to be, you know, with my body and fitness, extreme and sort of all over the place. I'll go through times where I'm like working out 2 to 3 times a day. I had, you know, a time early in the pandemic where, you know, I'd never been able to touch my toes, and I tried to increase my flexibility. So I was doing these stretching videos, and I did them like for an hour to 2 hours every day. So I was really motivated then, and I was doing everything. And, you know, I think in life now, you know, for me at least, I watch all these sports, I work out with you guys, the people above me, the people I look up to are able to do all this stuff, to work out a lot, to treat their body all the time, and they've had a ton of success, and they're people I look up to. But, you know, for me, I get to the middle of the week or the end of the week, and I've worked out twice a day or something like that, and I go, I'm tired. And I realized, oh yeah, it's because you've been working out twice a day, and you've been doing all this stuff for your body, and you've been going to work and trying to have a social life. So, I try and find this balance, and I guess, maybe you guys can have some guidance on it, but I struggle to figure out, where do I fit in breath work into all this? How much should I be stretching every day? How much should I be working out every day? How much should I moderate my eating? When you brought up holistic fitness, this was the first thing I thought about. So it's definitely something, breathwork, that I want to get into. That's always felt good, but I try and weigh these things and determine when I should be able to do it. Like, I have the Apple Watch too, and I've just gotten so used to just ignoring that breath or 1 minute breath or telling me to stand up. I got so used to ignoring it that I haven't done it, but maybe it's something that I should take small breaks out of my day to do. So I look to you guys for guidance on how I should be balancing this out.
I think that is a very common and normal thing, right? Like, I think a lot of times, especially if we start something new, it's as hard as it might be, sometimes we want to go full force and we jump all in and we give it 200% from the start. I think it kind of goes back to what Daniela was mentioning at the beginning, though, that we have to remember we are still human. We don't have to, like, all of these things that we're talking about with holistic fitness, we're going to go through a couple different topics. We are not saying that you have to implement them all right now, all tomorrow, all in one, And I think, as you mentioned, finding that balance, in my head sometimes when everybody is different and everybody's body is different, but I like to think we want to work smarter, not harder, right? So in your workout, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend 3 hours a day working out, but if you have an effective workout in 45 minutes or in 30 minutes or in an hour, the time that you have, if you really put your energy into that, then I think it is about finding that balance where you carve out some time for social life, you carve out a little time for your workout, and then of course you have work, I think it really all just depends. But even when implementing something new like breathwork or like stretching, like you're mentioning right now, do it in baby increments, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to spend an hour at the beginning doing breathwork every day or whatever it is. Maybe you spend like 10 minutes or 5 minutes doing a breathwork routine at what time works best for you. Maybe it's the morning when you first get up. You carve out an extra 5 minutes to just do some breath work, or maybe it's before you go to bed. I think starting small, just so we don't overwhelm ourselves. And even if you do it like, okay, I'm gonna start twice a week. Start twice a week, make it a habit, and then build your way up. So just remember that it's okay to start in those baby steps, so that you don't overwhelm yourself, and that you can pick one thing at a time, and then once you make that a habit, then you can move on to another, let's say, So I think trying to kind of alleviate that pressure on yourself to be like 150% on all the time. So I think that's a good thing to remember.
Yes, absolutely. Like everything Louis said, on point. Like, alleviate that pressure on yourself, and I think that's what I've also had to learn in terms of this whole breathwork thing. I know it's something that I want to do, and I know that it's gonna, but it's also like feeling that overwhelm or that pressure of feeling like I have to do it right now, right away, is literally counterintuitive, right? So it's like, and I want to add on to what Louise was saying. So in NASM, which is the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which both Louise and I are certified through for personal training, there are 5 steps to behavior change, and this applies to literally everything in life, not just fitness. But this is where I learned it from, which is why I had to mention NASM. So I'm going to just go through the steps real quick, and then we're going to move on. But first step is pre-contemplation, right? So that's like the stage where like you have no intention of changing your behavior in the foreseeable future. It's sometimes you're not even aware that you have to change that behavior, right? It's kind of like in the denial stage. Then step 2 is contemplation, right? So that's kind of like, okay, I'm aware that there's this quote unquote problem, which by the way, none of these things are problems. These are just things that we want to improve upon or like whatever, or add on as good habits. So just keep that in mind. These are not problems. But again, contemplation is something that you know it exists and you're thinking about maybe making a commitment to change it, right? Then there's that preparation stage, which is like, okay, now I'm going to start to research about this. How can I implement this change? How can I plan accordingly to start building this habit, right? So you're actually taking the time out of your day. And as we all know, if we're taking time to do something, it's because we care, right? You don't do something if you don't care about it, right? So I would say that you're probably in that preparation stage, right? Like you're considering it, you're asking these questions, you're asking for guidance. I would go as far as, reaching out to someone who's even more experienced in things like this. For example, Carmela is a resource that we have, a very dear friend who has been on Clubhouse Conversation, who has been a guest in our classes, who is absolutely a doll and so always welcomes any kind of conversation or any kind of questions for stuff like that. She, if breathwork is specifically what you're looking to do, Charlie, I'm just giving this as an example, then someone like that would be a wonderful person to go ask advice to, right? So start going to the right people. And then I'll be quick about this. 4 is action. It's like when you actually start to change your behavior, when you actually start implementing it. And that takes a while, right? Because starting something new isn't always going to be consistent, or it's gonna be difficult at first, so there's going to be some resistance, right? And that's just, by the way, that's a place where most people get stuck on, is that action. And then they kind of end up falling backtrack and go to that prepare stage again, because it's hard to keep a habit. And then the beautiful end of it all, the last stage, which is kind of like the execution, the success of it all, is maintenance. So how you can maintain it in your life. So that goes with anything, literally anything in this holistic fitness, anything in actual physicality, in the exercises, whatever it is. It's if you maintain it, I believe it's 6 months. It's literally after 6 months. If you've maintained it for 6 months, that's when it's considered maintained. And that's what, Anyway, if you guys are more interested in this, I can absolutely send you all of that. But know that you're not in the denial phase. You've admitted it. I think that's the first step, is admitting that you want to do it, acknowledging that you want to do it. And then it's now, I think, your next step, Charlie, it would be to take action. So keep researching about it, figure out a plan. I hope that was helpful. Crystal, take the floor, girl.
Sorry. Okay, I was just going to add another thing with Charlie, if breathwork is something that you want to do, but kind of like what Louise said, it can start with just 1 minute, and then you can slowly work your way up, and it can be something that maybe you start off, doing in the car. I know for myself sometimes breathwork is extremely beneficial for me. I feel that it helps me a lot with anxiety and stress. For people that are aware, I have been dealing with a lot the last year with my dad's cancer and everything, and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, feeling like I'm taking care of him and taking care of my own household. But breath work, sometimes I'll do it in the car. I'll be in the car and I'll just start focusing on my breathing, doing like a ujjayi breath, where you breathe in through the nose, hold it for a few seconds, like 4 seconds or so, and then release. Sometimes I do breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, trying to, hold it as long as possible. And then one of the times through Clubhouse, I think it was Carmela introduced us to, I don't remember the name of it, but it was basically just using your mouth to breathe in. There's times I do that in the car. But, you can kind of start slowly doing breath work really anywhere, whether it's in the car or while you're getting ready, for work, or while you're cooking, if you're sitting down watching TV. But it's something that you can start slowly, 1 minute, and slowly work your way up. For some time now, I've carved out time to make meditation a part of my daily scheduling, and I can actually thank Eric on this one. I was struggling with working out into my habit, into my daily schedule, and then he recommended that maybe, wake up a little earlier and fit 15 minutes in the morning, and then 15 minutes in the evening. And now, once I started doing that just like 15-minute workout, I was loving the way it felt, that the 15 minutes turned into, okay, let me do 30 minutes instead. And then, okay, 45 minutes. And now, like, you know, on a typical morning, I'll do an hour of working out before getting my day started. But it's like those little habits, as you start to do something and you're loving the way you're feeling, you're, at least for me, I felt like, okay, I wanted to carve out more time for that. And lastly, what I wanted to say is scheduling. For myself, I create a schedule for my day. And when I put something on my schedule, I feel like I'm more likely to get it done than if I don't put it on my schedule, because I feel like I'm booking an appointment with myself. And if I were to schedule something with a friend or with anyone, I probably would feel like a flake. And me personally, don't like I don't like being a flake. So I wouldn't want to cancel on somebody. Therefore, I'm supposed to love myself and take care of myself. So why would I want to do that to myself, the person that I'm supposed to look out for, and cancel on myself? So therefore, I need to show up for myself, and I need to make sure that I make myself as important as I do others that I make time to make schedules with. So that's another way that I've looked at things. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Oh my God.
Amen, girl. You nailed it. I mean, come on. Yes. Don't be a flake to yourself. Don't. That's it. Mic drop. Don't be a flake to yourself. Love yourself enough to not be a flake. I love it so much. Thank you, Crystal, so much for sharing that. And look, Eric, you have an impact on so many people, you don't even know it. With that said, Eric, please take the floor.
I'm literally like fist pumping in my car. Like, that's amazing, Crystal. I'm so glad to hear that. Also, those ideas didn't come from me. I didn't invent them. They came from other people, Louise, Daniela, other sort of experts, you know what I mean? So I'm so happy to hear that. What I wanted to say, Charlie, I, like, specifically this past week, I have been fitting in some, like, breath things, like, while I'm at work. Things that normally would cause my heart rate to increase that, like, makes my blood boil, like, for example, receiving a nasty gram from a client that I bend over backwards for on a regular basis. So, you know, like Crystal said, breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it, breathing out, hold it, kind of doing the box breathing. When, you know, the nasty gram as an example, you know, I went ahead and chose to breathe before I responded. And actually, I didn't respond the same day. I became calm and then decided, you know what, I'm going to draft this email, come back to it later, edit it tomorrow, and send it on a different day. Because reacting in a bad way, it doesn't fulfill my idea of spreading love and kindness. So breathing, when noticing that my heart rate was increasing, noticing that, like, my breathing pace was increasing, I was like, you know what, I'm going to slow down. So you can fit it in micro doses, you know, throughout your day or week. Those baby steps is my example as well.
I love that also because I think that's a perfect example of, I know we say this a lot, but like being patient with yourself, and that's being patient with yourself in so many different ways, you know, like not only being patient with yourself as implementing something, but being patient with yourself on a day-to-day, you know what I mean? Like knowing that you don't have to react right away. It's kind of like the, you know, you hear like think before you speak type of thing, but it really does apply to so many other things. Like Eric, that's an amazing example. Like you took that time to breathe, then you drafted, then you paused, and you were like, let me just, you know, make sure I'm in a good headspace, because like Crystal said, like you got to take care of yourself too, you know what I mean? So like making sure you're in that good headspace and then moving forward with whatever it is that you are looking to achieve. So thank you for sharing that. But so amazing, you guys. Oh my God, I'm like loving this so much. All the love and connection here. Okay. So with that said, we're going to just move on for time's sake, but meditation, we also kind of talked about, I know a couple of you mentioned, but it does go in with breath work. So On top of meditation, I think this can also dive into kind of like the psychology of things that we discussed. I know we kind of dove into a couple different sections of psychology, but as far as, mental health, mental well-being, whether that does entail meditation practice for you or whatever kind of practice that goes into, we'd love to also hear what your experience with mental health and mental well-being has been. Any challenges that you wish to share, you don't have to, of course, and then anything that you learned from any of the discussions. So feel free to take the floor, you guys. Going once. I mean, oh yeah.
Do you think you can repeat that one more time? I don't think I quite understood the question. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. The next topic kind of we're diving into is just the psychology. So any mental health, mental well-being, whether it's like practices that you've experienced, meditation, or just anything that you've kind of like absorbed, whether you were in that conversation when we spoke with Michaela, just about the different elements of the connection of psychology with holistic fitness. So we just kind of want to know your experience and what you've encountered when it comes to mental health.
For me personally, one thing that's helped me a lot, like I mentioned, is I carve out at least 10 minutes out of my day to do some meditation. And during that time, I focus on my breathing. I try to clear my mind. And sometimes thoughts are just coming through my mind, and it's like traffic, and I just I let them come in and let them go out. And for me, it's worked because in that moment, I try to just focus on my breath and to clear my mind. And even sometimes my mind's not clear because, things are running through it. But even if it's just for a few minutes that I'm able to clear my mind before the craziness of the day starts, it really helps me a lot. With that, I've also been practicing the mindset of not allowing for what I can't control to stress me out. So there are a lot of things sometimes that I have no control over. It's out of my control. For example, and I don't want to get too into it, but with my dad's diagnosis, I mentioned he has cancer, and his girlfriend has not been the best, so she's on her way out, but she's still living there, and the person that should be here is my mom to help care for him, and she's on board to care for him, but he has not wanted to make that transition for a long time, and that was very stressful because it put a lot of stress on me, because basically his whole well-being and all his appointments, everything gets put on me when technically there's someone that could be supporting us. But at the end of the day, I can't make that decision, so I had to learn to let go of that, because holding on to something that I had no control over and that at the end of the day I can't change was only stressing me out. So I've now tried to focus more on okay, it's out of my control. Why keep worrying about it? Why keep stressing about it? I just got to let it go and, let things work themselves out. So that's something that's been kind of helping my mind. And I kind of tie that in with psychological, because I feel like helping yourself understand that when something is out of your control, stressing out about it is not going to change anything. So all you're doing is creating more anxiety. Your stress causes so many illnesses, and why worry about it if you can't change it? Kind of like if you take a test, you already took it. Whatever the outcome's going to be, it's going to be. So why stress out about it? You can't change it once you've already taken the test. I mean, prior to the test, you can study and prepare yourself. But once you've taken it, why stress out about what your grade's going to be? Just let it go and wait till you get the results, and then move on from there. So, yeah.
I love that so much, and that reminds me of another app. Speaking of apps from before, another app called Headspace. I'm sure you guys have all heard of it. When it first came out, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have these cute little videos. And I loved one, and I always remember it. And whenever I get stressed out or I start thinking about too many things that I can't control, like you just said, Crystal. I physically try, like, when people say, like, try counting sheep to go to sleep, and you literally have to imagine, like, the sheep. I really try to visualize this image that I saw in Headspace, which was, the way they explained it was, imagine that there are a bunch of cars driving by, and all of the cars have a word on them, and all of those cars, all those words are like the things that are in your mind, right? All these like stresses and whatever else. And it's kind of just like learning how to sit on the side of the road, and instead of watching all the cars go by and try to keep track of every single one of them, what if you just sat there and just watched them and let them go on their way, let them pass. And it's just a shift in perspective is really all it is. It's exactly what you just said, Crystal. It's letting go. For me, I'll be quick with this one because I don't want to be the one talking the whole time, guys. For me, for my mental health, I've always found that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I like to talk about the things that are bothering me or the things that are stressing me out with people that I trust and that care about me and that support me and that, I know that will listen to me and not necessarily lend a solution, because sometimes I'm not looking for one and I just want to kind of vent. And I really think that just by venting and by letting it be known that I'm uncomfortable or I'm stressed or I'm sad or I'm feeling insert emotion, and having them listen to me, acknowledge me, and then just resonate with me in some way, shape, or form, helps me come back to the fact that it reminds me that I'm a human. And then also it really helps when the conversation kind of says, turns into like, this is my experience or whatever else. And so then it's like, I know that I'm not the only one that has felt this emotion. Because at the end of the day, what is psychology? What is mental health? It is emotions, it's feelings, and we all have them. We are all human. So we're constantly in a state of whatever that emotion might be. And you're right, Crystal, and again, it goes back to like that control. And I think, again, because we're humans, we want to control those emotions, like we want to control everything else in our lives. But it's just reminding ourselves that like those emotions will come no matter what. And they also will go no matter what. And then it's finding resources or outlets in which you can kind of help let them go, whether it be breath work, whether it be meditation, whether it's talking to a friend or a close relative or whatever it might be. So I think finding coping mechanisms when it comes to mental health is such an important thing, whether it's going to a therapist or a psychologist or whatever it might be, someone who's, again, like, that's also about like taking action. Like, how do you want to take action in this specific, part of your life? Right? And it's just finding those tools and finding those resources to kind of do it. But it's also acknowledging the fact that we are all human. And I think it's funny. It kind of reminds me of like, no offense to my dad if he ever listens to this, but like, there's some people who don't think that there's anything wrong at all and they don't need the help and they don't need to talk to anybody and all that. And it's kind of sad in a way because like, yeah, we all do need to talk to somebody. We all do need the help, whether it's a licensed professional or not, like however you want to do it. But I do think that it's good to sometimes, like, I always used to tell people, like, put it, if something's bothering you or if you have an idea or whatever it might be, like pen to paper. Pen to paper always works. I used to, especially as like an angsty teenager, I used to write down so many things. I used to write songs and lyrics, and it's hilarious because I've kept them and I like looked back at them and it's just like, nobody understands me, everybody, like all this stuff. But it helped to write it down on paper. It made me feel like empowered. It made me feel really good, and it like kind of just like flowed out of my head and onto the paper, and then I didn't have to worry about it anymore. All of a sudden I felt better. So again, like whether it's writing it down to yourself, whether it's talking to someone, for me, that's changed everything. Okay, anybody else want to go?
I do kind of want to just add something real quick, because this whole conversation just sparked a recent conversation that I had with a really good friend of mine, and we were talking about mental health, and they were saying how, I know them because they're a dancer as well. And they have had this really intense knee injury for the past like year and a half, on top of being cooped up at home and there's no studios and all this stuff. It's like dance was always their outlet, just like dance is my outlet. And, just like Daniela was saying, writing songs and that creative side is an outlet. It allows you to release those emotions and that tension that your body holds, right? All that kind of stuff, and your mind. So we were kind of talking, and they were just explaining to me how, like, they always had dance, and now they kind of didn't know what to do with themselves because they didn't feel like they had an outlet. So they signed up for this virtual like therapy service, I want to say. It's like all virtual, but the great thing that what made me realize and kind of appreciate is that there are so many resources like that nowadays, where I think their biggest thing before signing up was, well, is it going to be the same virtually? And because it's not as expensive, is it going to be good? And, but there's so many, we just got in this whole thing of like, there's so many affordable and effective. And, I think the service was like $55 for a month, and you can do it month by month. Like, you're not committed to anything. And if you pay that $55, you get unlimited sessions for that month. And you can also message the therapist 24 hours a day. I mean, obviously they'll be sleeping certain times, but you can message them whenever and you'll have that conversation. But it was just so amazing to see that there are so many services like that now with the technology that we have that can help. And after their first session, they felt amazing. They were like, oh my God, I'm definitely taking advantage of this month, So I kind of also wanted to put that out there for anybody who might be like, well, I don't know if I can afford it, or I don't know if I can commit to it, or I don't know if I'll be able to do it, or if it'll be the same because it's virtual. But you never know until you give it a shot. I honestly cannot remember the name. I will ask and I will let you guys know. But I know that there are a few. There are a couple different services like that. I'll think of the name and then I'll like put it on Insta or something like that. But yeah, it's just, like, don't be afraid to try it. I know sometimes we have this stigma, this idea around certain things, or if it's not the way that we envisioned it, if it doesn't look that way, we think it might not work. But like, you never know until you try, So yeah, just wanted to put that out there.
Does anybody else want to talk about psychology, or shall we move on? Going once, going twice, shimmy, shimmy, shake, shake. All right, cool. Awesome. Well, that's great because we have so much more to talk about, right? So many more topics to uncover. So let's talk about recovery, because I feel like recovery has a lot to do, and I think, Charlie, you reminded me a lot about this because you were talking about, and not to put you under any kind of limelight or anything, or light by any means, no pressure to speak, but you were talking about how you are extreme in a lot of the things that you do, whereas you were taking class or like twice a day, 3 times a day. You were like super committed in that sense. And there was a topic a while back. This was a while back. Eric, I think hopefully you'll remember this one because, and Crystal as well. We were talking about that analogy that I talked about, that water bottle, and how like you don't have to fill up the water bottle all the way up right away, right? You can fill it up a little bit at a time, a quarter here, another quarter tomorrow, another quarter maybe like next week, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like finding those times to do it, and it doesn't have to all be at once, otherwise it just creates this like really crazy overwhelm. It creates a potential burnout. It creates an unrealistic expectation of the results that you're looking for in whatever it might be, right? And I think it's super important to remember that without recovery, we literally we would all burn out. We would not, we wouldn't be able to survive. It's just not sustainable, right? So opening the floor to you guys, what is something that you guys have implemented in terms of recovery, whether it be physically, whether it be mentally, whether anything? I know we spoke a little bit about mentally, like in terms of like breath work and meditation, but
whatever it might be, recovery within the body, within the mind, within work, work-life balance, like maybe taking a vacation or whatever it might be. Have you guys been implementing, or have you guys learned about throughout these series, or that you want to implement going forward, something that you've had in mind that maybe you haven't done yet? So anybody take the floor. I'll go ahead and start. Something that I do for recovery that I feel is not only good on my body, but good on my mind is yoga. I love yoga for recovery. There's different types of yoga. Restorative yoga I find to be really relaxing to me. There's also yoga classes that I've attended where they do like sound baths. So my daughter actually ended up requesting sound bath bowls. She got them, and now sometimes for recovery, just laying down in a like meditation, like either sitting down in meditation or laying down, like kind of like a shavasana. She'll play the sound bowls, and I find it extremely relaxing. But that's something I personally do as a way for recovery. Like I said, recovery of the mind and recovery of the body. Likewise, another form of recovery for me is sometimes just sitting down and reading. Ideally, like books that are going to be more like self-help, bring value to my life, help me view life in a more, like, learn to better cope with issues. So currently I'm reading Think Like a Monk, and I find those books to be very nourishing for my mind and helps me live a life that is more fulfilling and that I am more pleased with. But likewise, because it's helping my mind, it's helping my body because I feel less stressed. So an example is the other day we were taking a walk, an evening walk, my boyfriend and I, and it was our turn to walk. The pedestrian little person came on, and the car to the left had been waiting, but obviously it was our turn to walk first. But he decided to go, and he kind of like threw up his hand like, sorry, but I'm going. And Think Like a Monk is basically think like, well, maybe he really had to take a shit right now, and he couldn't hold it any longer, and for that reason, he just had to go. So then I find compassion in my heart, and I'm like, okay, it's not that he was trying to be a jerk. He was just, he probably had something really important that he had to get to, and he couldn't wait. Therefore, don't let it bother you. Just keep on going. You know what? And then you don't feel those angry feelings. You don't feel stressed. You don't get any icky feelings running through your body. And I feel like it helps you all around. When you help your mind, you help your body. When you're helping your body, you're helping your brain. When you're doing breath work, you're helping your brain. You're helping your lungs. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and it's been helping me.
Oh my gosh. Think Like a Monk. Crystal, you're gonna have to let me know how you like it, because I've been wanting to read that actually, because Jay Shetty has this podcast. I don't know if you've tuned into it. You might have, but it's called On Purpose, and it is very like, oh my gosh, I just love everything he has to say, and he has just a bunch of different topics. Like I think one of them was about vulnerability and like turning your like weaknesses into your superpower, or like the courage to make mistakes and like move forward, and like those are the kind of topics he talks about. So if anybody on here is interested, highly recommend checking it out. But that just totally made me think of it, and that is a book I definitely want to read. So keep me posted, Crystal. But anyways,
so far it's really good, and so far I'd highly recommend it to everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Feel free to take the floor.
I guess with me, as I talked about, I started stretching towards the beginning of the pandemic. That really helped me feel good in my body, especially after working out. I started with these videos that I found on YouTube that would just very light stretching, and the instructors are really good at stretching, really flexible, and they had these soothing voices and this nice music in the background. Really helped me out. I started memorizing the stretches that they did and the order that they did it, and I started doing it on my own. And I was able to do the stretches, and my body felt good. It didn't feel the same when I actually stopped doing the videos. I think part of the reason why I love Fuego Fitness is the community and being around people. So I really like doing the stretches actually with the video on, and with the relaxing music and the soothing voices. I think it helps to have set a tone like that, and to feel like you're actually doing it with someone. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I've done more recently is napping. I when I was younger and I was barely working out, I didn't care as much about my body. I would not get much sleep, and then I would come home from my internship and I would nap for like 2 to 3 hours, and I would wake up feeling horrendous, and I couldn't really operate throughout the day, and I wouldn't be able to sleep later that night. So it sort of turned me off to napping when I got older. But as I've started, working out more and taking care of my body, I would feel that I would start getting really tired. And I just one day say, I'm just going to try and lay down and maybe rest my eyes and take a nap. And I would take, a light nap of, half an hour to an hour, and I would wake up feeling so refreshed and just energetic and way better than I did before, especially on nights where I maybe didn't sleep too much. So I think, I had forgotten the power of napping and the power of sleep before that, but it really has helped me recover and actually be able to operate throughout the day when I'm working out a lot. So I think stretching and sleeping and napping have done it for me.
I must say I'm pretty jealous that you can nap, and I love that you see it as such a therapeutic tool and such a, like a game changer in your day to day. And that's actually, I love that you said that, because that's a perfect example of it. Holistic fitness is not a one size fits all. Like, that works for you, and you found that thing that works for you, and you found that community of people through Fuego Fitness that works for you. You found those YouTube videos that work for you, right? Like, I mean, I think you're doing a pretty damn good job, Charlie, at doing this thing, and I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit from just speaking from what, like, in the beginning, that you were like looking for guidance. It sounds like you're on a pretty good journey, and now it can only get better from here. You found the things that have worked for you. You created this wonderful balance so far, and you can continue to expand upon that and explore upon that as you want to grow, and as you want to continue to change and be better for yourself and for your holistic balance of your life, right? So that's pretty awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Last but not least, we're running out of time, and there's so many more things we want to talk about, obviously, but let's quickly, we've got about 5 more minutes, so let's quickly dive into nutrition, because that was our last conversation with Emily, and I think we learned a lot. If whoever was in that conversation, she took us through a virtual tour of the kitchen, talked about how Whole Foods are energizing and they feel good, and they, and she kind of just gave us examples and tools of like how we can start to implement healthier foods and be a little bit more mindful about what we're choosing in the grocery store, and gave us ideas on, or not ideas, but how to plan accordingly in order to succeed in that area, which is a place where I think a lot of us, myself included, sometimes struggle with in terms of like the planning, right? The planning process, the meal prepping process, just kind of being able to make it more of a consistent habit. So curious to hear your thoughts on, again, same question pretty much is, what have you learned from our conversation surrounding nutrition? What have you been implementing? What do you want to implement? Anybody can take the floor.
I would say definitely something I learned. Can you guys hear me okay? I think you can hear me, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, all right. Something I definitely learned was I was in a bad habit of eating out of containers. So like large, well not large, but an entire canister of peanut butter was like definitely one of my things. More than on, kind of on a regular basis. It was not so good. Serving yourself 4 tablespoons or 2 instead of 4. Or just kind of portion controlling. So like, I know that she suggested like not weighing out your food, but there was this meal plan once where I was weighing out my food, and then, after 10 times of weighing out your food, okay, this ladle in my kitchen fits 5 ounces of rice when I do 2 scoops. So then kind of in general, okay, this is about how much I should be eating. So I would say like learning how much you should be eating like visually with the tools you have in your kitchen so you can easily do it without like getting on the scale every single time. Figuring out, okay, this size of peanut butter is about right, where you're not taking all that time to like exactly measure it out and stressing yourself out about it. That's kind of my one of the main things I learned from our conversation with her, for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, bam, like right there, it's like that was a huge takeaway, right? And I think like we all could learn from that. And you're so right. It doesn't have to be this complicated thing. Like you do it, 10 times or so, and then you start to learn and you start to kind of realize like, oh, this isn't so hard. This isn't so challenging. Like I can make this work for myself. And I loved another thing she said. Sorry, I don't want to, again, someone else can talk after this, but I just wanted to bounce off of that. I also really loved the whole intuitive eating perspective. And that was, for those of you who were like, wait, what's that again? It's just being mindful when you sit down at the table and when you're eating and knowing when your body is satisfied, and then having that kind of, okay, I'm good. I don't need to finish this plate. And then I think she brought that back to, this is like how we grew up. It's like some of us sat at a table when we were children and we're like, you can't stand up until you finish your food, right? And so we were kind of forced into, I would say forced into some sort of mentality of like, don't waste food. Whereas I think nowadays, I think it's a lot more kosher, if you will, that it's okay to, put it away for later or, whatever it might be. And I think that just hearing her say that, I've actually been a lot more mindful with that lately. Just be like, I'm good. I can put the rest away for tomorrow. So that's something I took away. Anybody else?
To go off of what you were just saying right now, I'd have to agree with the mindset that we might have been told as kids, like you need to finish your whole plate. If you ordered it, you need to eat it all. In today's society, portions typically at restaurants are so large. Like, realistically speaking, you should not be eating portions that are that big. And when we put in our heads or in our children's heads that they need to eat all of that, we're basically instilling bad habits into them because we are eating more than what our body is supposed to be taking in. And in the end, the only person you're going to affect is yourself, because all of that's going to become waste in your stomach. So I've changed my mindset now on, okay, you know what, it's money thrown in the trash if you don't eat it all or whatever, because that's the way sometimes people think. But then it's going to be more toxic to me if I put it in me and it ends up harming me, whether it's, weight gain that could turn into like obesity or an unhealthy weight that could give you health issues. If it's something that you're eating out and it's not even like whole foods, again, toxins going into your body. So that's, when you said that, it reminded me of that. And I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely. I did. Sergio, hey, what is up? If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and share, I saw you just joined, so hey, jump on in. Go once. Or
You have to click the microphone at the
there we go.
Hi guys.
Hello.
I'm sorry to be Mr. Last Minute. I'm enjoying taking it all in. It's just a little difficult to talk because I was working. But Crystal, you're right. Sometimes we have to consider the pros and the cons of finishing what you feel like you shouldn't be eating. And there's always the green waste where it goes back into the earth. So it's okay. And also, I think the one thing that's helped me from the clubhouses is when we want to do something is to just do it, just get started, to not put those like blocks that are keeping us from getting started. And I've also learned that it doesn't have to be perfect. That it's never going to be perfect, but over time, you just keep getting better and better. And that's like, I think that's really the number one thing that's been helping me. Ever since I started listening to you guys, every single contact is just like intake. But I think that's the number one that's that I've taken and I still apply to like a lot of things in life. And so I just want to say thank you guys.
You are the best, Sergio. Thank you so much for tuning in and for just sharing that. Honestly, we have heard time and time again the impact you've had on different people in our community as well. So for that, we are so grateful for you. Real quick before I forget, because I asked my friend what service, I know we were talking about the services earlier, and I was like, hey, what was the name of that service that you were using? It is called BetterHelp. So if you guys want to check it out, it's called BetterHelp. I believe it's all one word. I know there's also one called Talkspace out there, but feel free to check either one of those out. But that is for the virtual therapy sessions. Again, the pricing can range, I'm sure. I'm not sure, but I know from what they said, it was $50 a month, and you get unlimited sessions. So check out the details. Don't quote me on that, but check them out. And if you guys have any questions, let us know. But just wanted to say that before I forgot. Yeah.
Not sponsored, but open to it.
Yeah, not sponsored, but open to it. Hashtag not mad. Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, thank you so much for participating, for joining, for listening, for sharing all of that good stuff. We really appreciate it. And oh my God, it's just so great to hear from all of you guys. We are going to wrap up just for time's sake, but stay tuned because we have more chats coming your way. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we will be posting these chats on our Instagram. They are all on our Instagram TV as well. Oh, go ahead, Daniela.
Lastly, I want to please encourage everybody, if there is a topic that you guys are interested in learning more about, or have somebody who you think would be really cool to interview that you want to learn from, or anything like that, please send them our way, or please send us topics that you want to cover our way, because this is literally for you guys. So we want to talk about everything that you guys want to talk about, right? And I think these conversations have been so incredibly helpful and so informative, so insightful, and we just want to keep these things going. So please, we need your help for that to happen, okay? So anyway, we are totally past time. Louise is going to go teach a class now. But we love you guys so much. Thank you again for joining, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You guys too.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you.